Investigators are hustling tonight to get justice for Jazmine.
Deputies say they are chasing many possible leads linked to the sketch, and this video released 24 hours ago. Your help could be the missing piece investigators need in East Harris County. Our Melissa Correa is live near the Beltway and Wallaceville Road. Mel, a big question today is, why don't we have more images to go on?
I just miss my baby. I miss her to death, and it's just gonna always be a blank spot in my heart.
From her hospital bed and through tears, LaPortia Washington feels the immeasurable loss.
He took away an innocent child that did not deserve this. She did not deserve this at all. I can't imagine waking up without her every morning.
February 11th, 2011. The world would make way for Jazmine Barnes. She would be born to her mother, LaPortia Washington, and her father, Christopher Sevilla. Although the relationship between the parents wouldn't work out, they would remain cordial, and they would raise her in the state of Texas. She would have her upbringing in the Houston area. She's described by family as a love child, and if you don't know what that is, that's basically a child that is born out of wedlock, where parents weren't married. Marriage is a union, but in this day and age, it's just a piece of paper. And a piece of paper won't stop the love you have for your child. She would be raised and nurtured, someone who was extremely loved. But it wasn't just her family, it was any and everyone she encountered.
We got Jazmine coming out of shoot, please.
She
Wild Bill. Are you ready, Jazmine? Are you ready? Hold
the rip, Jazz. Hold it. Hold on, Jazz.
Hold it. Hold it, girl.
As time begins to move forward, she will grow from an infant into a child. And before you know it, it's 2018. Jazmine Barnes is now 7 years old, and she's a second grader at L.E. Monahan Elementary. She was a very caring soul. She enjoyed giving hugs and taking care of others. She's also described as a great student, someone who was bright, cheery, someone who enjoyed learning. Jazmine was someone who was smart. She caught on quick. In fact, her teacher said if she was up for a job position, she would hire her immediately. When she wasn't busy with her school or studies or hanging out with friends and family, she enjoyed listening to music, and one of her favorite things to do was dance. By the end of December, she was just like any other child. She was enjoying the end of her Christmas break, getting ready to head back to school. But when all the children filed back into class and the first bell rang, they would be empty, one seat. Jazmine Barnes wouldn't be present. Before school began, a crime would occur, a crime that would bring the city of Houston to its knees. Sunday, December 30th, 2018. On this morning, Jazmine's mother, along with her 3 sisters, would all hop into a car, and they would make their way to the store. The plan was to stop by the store and get juice and coffee to go along with the breakfast that their mother was preparing. Everything seemed normal, your typical day. The kids were in the back seat while the mother was driving, but then suddenly, something would happen. A vehicle would pull alongside of them, and shots would begin to ring out. In that moment, panic would arise. Shards of glass were flying in the air as the mother tried to escape. When the scene seemed calm, the mother would pull to the side of the road to check on her children. During this instant, the mother would be struck in the arm. For the most part, the children seemed okay, until one of the children would say Jazmine was hurt. At this time, Jazmine is unresponsive. She's been hit in the head region. The sounds of sirens would echo in the distance as they made their way towards the scene, but by the time police and EMS showed up, 7-year-old Jazmine Barnes would be pronounced deceased upon arrival. Police would tape off the scene and begin their analyzation. While the crime scene was being processed, the other children were put in care of family, while the mother would be rushed to the hospital. She would be treated for her injury to the arm, but she would be okay. But after she was treated, she would be hit with some bad news. Bad news that her daughter was no longer here. In the world of investigation, there's no time to waste, and although you're mourning, an interview needs to be conducted. So that's what the detectives would do. They would interview both the mother and the surviving children. Due to the mother being the driver, she didn't see much. However, the children would provide a different story. They claimed to have seen it all. Although they couldn't provide a make and model, they knew whoever the perpetrator was drove a 4-door red truck. They described him as a white male in his 40s, someone who was wearing a hoodie with his hood pulled up over his head. The children described him as thin and pale, someone with a very short beard, not a full beard, more of a 5 o'clock shadow, and he was someone with blue eyes. And just like that, a manhunt would begin. The investigators were working solely off of the eyewitness account. The first day of the investigation will come to a close, and then the second day, and they were no closer to finding the culprit. Police did, however, manage to capture the red truck on surveillance tape. Alongside the surveillance video, they would release a positive sketch of the suspect. When the sketch was released, questions would begin to arise. Who was he? And why did he do what he did? Questions only he himself could answer.
Investigators are hustling tonight to get justice for Jazmine.
Deputies say they are chasing many possible leads linked to the sketch, and this video released 24 hours ago.
From the hospital to the podium, emotional pleas from both parents today.
I just want anybody, whoever out there that knows anything about the murder of my daughter, to just please step up as if it was your own.
While the investigators were following leads, they would catch a break. They would come to find that a guy was arrested the same day that the incident occurred. 49-year-old Robert Cantrell was arrested on charges of robbery, as well as evading police inside of a motor vehicle. But it wasn't the charges that stood out. It was his uncanny resemblance to the sketch. And with Robert matching the description, he became suspect number 1. Robert Cantrell would be taken out of his cell and placed inside of a holding room, where the investigators would come in for further questioning. But when he was questioned, he would deny all accusations. He said he was innocent, and he had nothing to do with what happened to the little girl. Aside from the sketch, the authorities had nothing, and you can't convict someone for looking like a picture. So while they thought they were onto something, they really weren't. Robert Cantrell would be put back in his cell, and they were back at square one. Tuesday, January 1st, 2019. A $35,000 reward would be issued for any information that leads to the capture of the culprit. By now, she's become national. Even celebrities got involved, with Shaquille O'Neal offering to pay for the funeral. That $35,000 reward would quickly move to $60,000. But even with the reward being raised, tips came in, but none of them would pan out. By January 4th of 2019, the reward was at an astounding $100,000, and it seemed to do the trick. The authorities would receive a tip. In this tip, they would provide a description of a possible suspect. And then, the next day happens. January 5th, 2019. 20-year-old Eric Black Jr. would be arrested. He was initially pulled over for failing to signal at a light, but when the officer got to the vehicle, he smelled something peculiar. Upon searching the vehicle, he was in possession, so he would be arrested and hauled down to the local jail. But once he gets there, the officer realizes that he resembles the tip that came in through the hotline. He would immediately be interrogated about what happened to Jazmine Barnes. At first, he denies everything. He says he has no knowledge, and he sticks to that story. A few days later, Jazmine Barnes would be laid to rest. Friends, family, and acquaintances, even people that didn't know her, would all pack out a 2,000-seat church and pay their respects.
I love and thank every single soul and body that's occupying this building right now. In remembrance of my baby girl.
Are you ready?
She brought so much peace and unity around the world to many, many families, healed and bonded so many broken relationships around the world, not just in Houston, around the world. Her job here was done, and it was done perfectly.
I'm writing this from heaven where I'll dwell with God above, where there are no more tears, pains, or sadness, just eternal love. Please do not be unhappy just because I'm outside of sight. Remember that I am with you every morning, noon, and night. That one day that I had to leave you, when my life on earth was finished, God picked me up, hugged me, and said, I welcome you. It's good to have you back again.
After the funeral, Eric Black would be once again questioned, and something miraculous would happen. Eric Black would give a full confession. In fact, he told the authorities that the weapon was still at his home. But to complicate things even further, he says he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by another guy, a guy who actually did the act. After a full confession, Eric Black would be indicted on charges of murder, and a few days later, on January 10th of 2019, his accomplice was also behind bars. Police would arrest then 24-year-old Larry Woodruff. He too would be charged with the charge of murder. But there was one problem. Neither of these guys look anything like the sketch. Did the authorities really have the right suspects in custody? Or was this all a misunderstanding? A question that would be answered in due time. 20-year-old Eric Black and 24-year-old Larry Woodruff are now behind bars. They were both locked up and facing bonds of over $1 million. And then something happens. 20-year-old Eric Black has his bond reduced to a mere $150,000. If you don't know how a bond works, you only need 10% to walk the streets freely, meaning he only needed $15,000. Eric Black would post that bond, and he was once again a free man, awaiting his trial. Shortly after Eric Black posts his bond, something happens. About that first suspect, 49-year-old Robert Cantrell, the guy who had an uncanny resemblance to the sketch. You want to know what happened to him? Well, he was found inside of his cell in the Montgomery jail, deceased. Due to the rules, I can't tell you the exact COD, but I can tell you this. It was ruled self-inflicted, meaning he did it to himself, allegedly. In the year of 2022, both Eric Black and Larry Woodruff would stand trial. Eric Black would have his trial first, but he would show up and immediately plead guilty. Next up to bat is Larry Woodruff, who at this point is still claiming his innocence. Outside of the confession given from Eric Black, the authorities had nothing. The only thing they had to tie Larry to the scene was that his cell phone pinged near the area on the morning the incident occurred. The trial seemed to be going in the defense team's way, that is, until the prosecution would call a star witness. The star witness was Eric Black. Eric Black would take the stand, and he would tell his version of events. He says that on that morning that the incident occurred, both him and Larry Woodruff was inside of the vehicle selling some things. I'm not going to say exactly what, because you can put two and two together. While they're out serving the streets, something happens. They drive past a silver Dodge Avenger. At the time, Eric Black says he was driving, and Larry was in the passenger seat. Eric says that the Dodge Avenger stood out because he had sold some guys product earlier that day. Some guys who were also driving a silver Dodge Avenger. Turns out, Eric had shorted these guys, and they were mad, so they took to Twitter to start making threats. A few hours after this Twitter post, they come across another silver Dodge Avenger. At that time, he says that they were operating under the basis that I'll get you before you get me. So, he says that they pulled alongside of the vehicle. Again, Eric is driving. Larry is in the passenger seat, and he's the one armed. Eric says they didn't get a look at the people inside of the vehicle. They just saw a few heads inside of the car, so they figured it was them. He says that Larry Woodruff then opened fire. and before the smoke cleared, they sped off from the scene, not knowing that at the time it was a mother and her children in the back seat, which means the motive that claimed the life of 7-year-old Jazmine Barnes was purely a mistaken identity. The story has now been told, and the jury would go out to deliberate, and when they came back, they would find Larry Woodruff guilty of murder. For Larry's participation in this act, he would receive life in prison without the possibility of parole. As far as Eric Black, he copped out to a plea. For his role in the incident, he would receive 30 years behind bars, which is a very far cry from the 99 years that he was facing. But you know what they say, he who tells first is the one who gets the deal. But although the culprits are now behind bars and serving their sentences, there's questions that still remain. In fact, when the trial began, the father said himself he doesn't believe they have the right people. He said he wants justice, but not if the wrong people are at trial. Christopher Sevilla says, I think it's a circus. There's a bunch of lies being told. He says that Jazmine's surviving sisters told him that they didn't make anything up. They know what they saw. They saw him. They looked into his eyes, and he had blue eyes. On top of that, there's the mother's testimony. She says that this red truck was not only alongside of them, but it pulled up in front of them and continued to fire.
And then he didn't just stop there. He sped off in front of us and stopped and still continued to fire at us. I need everybody to pull together to get justice for my child.
One last thing. The children said that the guy from the sketch had initially gotten into it with their mother inside of a grocery store parking lot.
Jazmine's stepmother, Heather, says she can't forget what Jazmine's siblings said at the hospital.
She said, my mom got into it with this guy. She was buying us candy and soda, and they were arguing at the gas station. It was a white guy with blue eyes, and he had a red truck. He came on side of us. How could you change that story of what's stained in a 6-year-old brain?
But now all of a sudden, that never happened. They said that eyewitness accounts can't always be credible because you're under stress. You may see the wrong thing. There's one more thing that stands out as odd. Eric Black posting a bond of $150,000. How did you come up with $15,000 when you couldn't even post the $5,000 bond for the charges you were initially charged with? Meaning you only needed $500 to walk on those. But you never posted that. What do you guys think? I want to know your thoughts. Do you think that justice was served, or was something else lurking beneath the surface? In the end, it's a heartbreaking story. Jazmine Barnes was 7 years old. 7. By all accounts, a loving, energized, caring soul. And one day, things were cut short. Her family and friends will never again get to glare at that smile or hear her laughter. And everything that was to come is now a big what if. Rest in peace, Jazmine Barnes. Thank you for being a light for others. At this moment, I would say, I hope you get the justice you deserve. But let them tell it. It was already done. So I'll just say, rest easy. I hope the full story comes to the forefront.